On today's show, we will be tackling women's rugby with two very special guests, Marithy Pienaar and Johann Zeier. Marithy played for the South African women's sevens team for 6 seasons, having played on the world circuit for 1 year and also playing at the Commonwealth Games in 2018. She is currently a sevens academy manager with Gaelic Sport in Stellenbosch. Johann coaches the women's Marty's rugby team and is also involved in a number of analysis companies around rugby. So welcome to these two. Over to you guys.
Okay, hello everyone, welcome back to Rugby Is Mental. Also welcome back to South Africa. Pienaar, back from Italy.
Thank you, it's good to be back.
You can tell us a bit more about that later. With us today we have Marithy Pienaar, ex-sevens women's Blitzborg. Retired last year, so we'll have a chat to her. And also with us, Corné, you invited another guest. You prepped him about 2 weeks ago, just gave him some questions.
Yeah, he prepared a whole essay for us that he's going to read, so we're really looking forward to that. Johann Zeier, he's been coaching Marty's women's, both 7s, 10s, 11s, 15s.
Everything pretty much.
Everything. So thanks, Johann, for kind of being last minute here and the only true Saiti Englishman at the moment. So
yes. So I've been accused of. I've been awarded given the award of sounding like Caroline van Jaarsveld by Andrie's mother, which I wear proudly. So that's what I sound like on the podcast. So just now you can't sound any worse than that.
We'll work up from there.
Yes. So I'll start off with you, Marithy. Thank you for being here and joining us. And you can really relax.
Thank you.
Just maybe start off by telling us how you fell in love with rugby. What got you into rugby as a career?
So I won't really say that I ever fell in love with it, because it was actually a thought that I just thought of women's rugby or rugby in general. And I actually phoned around that specific day. It was in 2010. It was a Wednesday. And I told my mother that I'm using her work phone to find out where women's rugby in South Africa is going on. And she's like, you're not going to play women's rugby, so, don't do it. And at the end of the day, I did it. And I literally, I ended up at UNISA, and they said that there's actually a women's sevens or a women's rugby day that Saturday. And I'm on scroll at Mandela Square, and I told my dad about it, and he's like, well, let's go. And my mother was obviously not happy, but we ended up going there. And so we got there, and there were no rugby balls or any form of indication that there's try lines or nothing. They just played, and the current coach, Rian van der Merwe of Tikkies, actually asked me, okay, well, can you at least pass a rugby ball? Just show me what you have.
And you've never played rugby before after that?
I've never. I've done team sports and obviously netball, but not rugby at all. And then he said, well, just pass around and let's see what you have. And he's like, after I passed a couple of times, he's like, well, can you play today? I'm like, I can't play. Yes. I'm like, I am currently I'm dressed to just as a supporter. I don't have any clothes here. He's like, no, but, just try it out. I'm like, no, coach, let's just, leave it for another opportunity. So then we spent a little bit of time there, see how the girls do or did. And then he said to me that following week there's Tikkies trials and I should come and join them. And I went that following week, and I made the team after the trials. And then a week after that, they invited me to Blue Bull trials, and I went a week after that, played Blue Bull trials. And then a month after that, the Springbok 15s invited me to play trials with them. So then at the end of 2010, I played my first tournament in Zimbabwe with Tikkies. And then at the beginning of 2011, I got invited to a Springbok camp, and I think it was July, there was a Nations Cup in USA, and I selected me as captain in the SA 15 setup, and I went, and my rugby career literally started like that. So in a in a time frame of less than a year. That's basically how it started.
Insane! Wow. And you played for how long?
What do you mean for?
Your rugby career. You retired last year, so what's that? 8-9 years?
So I've played for 6 years for the SA setup, and then before that I was 2 years involved at the Tikkies and then Blue Bulls, 15s and 7s.
From just if I can jump in, from a recruitment development point of view, would that be an angle for you? Go look for a natural athlete and then try and learn her the skill, like at the top level, or if you want the short-term success, as opposed to try and develop it at grassroots level.
I think it's quite difficult to try and find, let's say, talented athletes that can perform in a team setup rather than, what I mean by team setup is more to do with balls, having that ball skill. So I think I'd say I was a bit lucky, and maybe at that moment in time I just, it's difficult. Like I grew up with my brother, and we played a lot of, we passed rugby balls and played cricket and things like that. So I think for me as when I was still, or younger, I played a lot with my brother and, developed kind of a ball skill. But I think getting people that can actually perform in a team sport, like with have that ball skill is a bit difficult. And to develop it at an age of, let's say, 17, 18, you've kind of missed the important part of it. So I'd rather say you literally want to start at under 8, under 9, so implementing a program like that.
And maybe you can jump in, Johann. What's the state of women's rugby at the moment in South Africa?
It's quite a tricky state, so I think there's a lot of support for obviously the top setups. Obviously the Springbok sides, they're doing fantastically at the moment. Lots of support there, lots of good structure for the ladies to get pulled up in. And now recently, I think the IPL just finished and Western Province won a third time, so they did really well on that. I think the problem isn't towards the top. I think the problem is towards the bottom. So just like Marithy said, getting them developed earlier into the game, because we are missing that window where we're now trying to take ladies later in their lives and trying to take them across to rugby and then trying to all of a sudden develop them and rush that development. When I think we need to maybe try and start a little bit earlier, give them more time. And I think our system kind of almost needs to flip in that sense. If you put more time on the development of a younger athlete, you have better athletes when they're older. But where we are now, we put all our focus towards the end, and that doesn't help things grow across the board quick enough.
That makes sense. And you touched on it when your mom was like, you're not going to play, rugby. So am I right in saying there's a bit of stigma still around girls playing rugby? So what are the opportunities for young girls, schoolgirls, to get involved in rugby? Are there any at the moment?
Well, the ones I know of, this year at Marty's, we actually gave away the first Marty Sport Rugby bursary to a woman ever, which was quite a big step forward. I know Tuks, I think they've been doing it for a while. They've been giving scholarships, and I think they have better financial backing than most universities for the women's setup. So I think kind of as it gets more traction and more funding, there's more opportunities available. So yeah, I think as long as they can get an education out of it, and they can play some better rugby, I think there is opportunity. But how available that opportunity is, though, is tough. When you go out to other areas and say now the Eastern Cape and stuff, then maybe it's a bit more far and few between.
Okay. How did you deal with that stigma of being a girl playing, I'm putting this in inverted commas, a man's game? Was there any challenging aspects to that, or not really?
I think when I started, I wasn't really aware of what's really going on in women's rugby, like what let's just say it, but men in general, what their perception is about women's rugby, and obviously their opinions about it. So at first I wasn't really aware of what's going on, and I wasn't really affected by it. But I think when I became part of the SA7 setup, then obviously you literally walk into politics and you become part of it. So I think the biggest challenge was the fact that people would literally every day ask you, why do you play rugby, and you're a woman and you're not supposed to play rugby. But I think with the great setup that I was part of, they kind of let you deal with it. So they kind of let you, not talk it away, but let people think differently about it. Because what I normally tell people is, why would you ask a woman that's playing rugby, why do you play rugby, but you won't ask a boy that plays hockey or netball, that is, I'd say, more female dominant sport, the same question. So I think it's basically, facing those kind of challenges that you need to answer people's questions. And I think it's better now. Like, obviously in
There's
universities,
more awareness now about
definitely, and I think in universities and provincial level specifically, they're focusing so much on sevens now. And the fact that it became an Olympic sport also helps it a lot, because people are, competing. You don't need a lot of numbers to fill a team, like in 15. So it's easy, accessible to become part of the sport and to actually play the sport without, there's less contact and things like that. Yeah.
I'm interested from a coaching point of view. The first question would be the stereotypical South African player, where the men around the world we're known to be big and strong and physical, if not really great ball skills, awareness. Would you say that's similar to the South African woman stereotype? That would be my first question. And the second question would be, if you were to start coaching a team tomorrow, where would you start? Where do you think would be you need to do the most work or the most improvement?
I think, to answer your first question, in 15s, in women's 15s, I think that some people do have the idea of being big is going to get you somewhere, just because it's a tougher game than sevens, and it's not as quick as the sevens game. But currently, I think you would more become part of a setup, and the way women's rugby is growing in South Africa, and it's getting more professional. So people are digging deeper than just come and play rugby. You need to. I mean, the current conditioning coach of the SA Women's Coach system he's implementing structures and systems and programs that you can't actually be big anymore. You have to be able to move. You have to be able to get off the ground. You have to be able to get to tackles, etc., etc. So I think that is definitely not the same, and you need to be able to move, and you need to be able to get to point A from point A to point B. And
technically wise, sort of, if you would start coaching, say you take a team tomorrow, or you advise me, where would you start, or what sort of aspect do you think needs the most attention, technically wise?
So I'd say let's talk about the sevens game, and we can obviously, the 15s game is also part of this, but I think the big thing that we're currently struggling with, and I actually refer to the men's game as well, is our passing game and our receiving game. And I simply mean by passing and catching. I think it sounds very cliche, but I mean, in the same sense, it's something that you really need to work hard on. And I think even in general in South Africa, the typical dad wants his son to just run over everyone. If you're 8 years old, you need to run over everyone. If you're 9 years old, but I mean, that is not the focus point at the moment in that specific age. So I'd say when you start at the young age, start with the development of typical ball skills, of catching and passing, and develop hand-eye coordination. And I mean, as you go, and if you haven't had that foundation, it's not a train smash, but then when you enter a professional setup or provincial setup or whatever, you have to be able to catch and pass. And I think the emphasis when it comes to testing has to sometimes also move to that window.
Yeah.
Can you pass 15 meters? Can you kick this? Can you? So more the unit skills and the positional development, I'd say is crucial. It's very important.
I like that. It's almost easier to get physically stronger and bigger than
Exactly.
learning spatial awareness and decision making and catch and pass.
I'd like to hear your thoughts as well, Johann, on those questions. If you were listening, I don't know.
I was. So the first question about the typical South African women's rugby player. So from my perspective, it's obviously more from a club perspective. And I think in the clubs and universities, there is more of an emphasis of a more kind of contact dominant game. And not so much a skills focused game. And I think that just comes with, again, rushing to try and get the games to happen. So there isn't enough time to actually coach people correctly and say, look, if there's space on the outside, all we need to do is we just need to pass, and we just need to think, and we just need to communicate. But it's a lot easier to coach a team, say, when you get the ball, run it up, get the ball again, run it up, kind of like one pass and run. And from my perspective, that's kind of what I've seen to be quite common in the spheres that we play against. It's very physical, and there's not a lot of decision making. There's not a lot of communication, and those things that takes time developing through the game.
Before you go on to the next one, how you are both coaches. How do you address something like that? It's massive, right?
I think just from when I was playing, you got in a high pressure situation, you kind of revert to what you're comfortable with. So
and we'll go back to that.
if I'm not comfortable hitting a 15-meter pass to my right in a game, I'm 9 out of 10 times I'm rather going to tuck or step inside, see if I can. So I would think you really need to train in a certain way that you create confidence in that skill, whether it's baby steps and then keep putting them in that situation and reinforcing or encouraging them to make mistakes. Or it's fine if you can't hit it first time. Just keep playing. I'm not gonna drop you for the next game if you don't make that pass. And kind of have an approach to that skill that makes the player, first of all, feel more comfortable or more relaxed and have more confidence in trying the skill, especially in training, rather than shying away from it.
Yeah, I think from my side, I would definitely approach it in a similar way, but also it's just decision making and being able to read the game. I think often the ladies are very set if they make a call, say now 2 phases earlier, and they're very kind of concrete to not change that call, to not kind of look up, and they always want to stick to the plan, and it's a rugby sense it takes time to build. And I think a good way to approach it is have them play more. I think often we just want to do 5 drills in a training and say, okay, now they've got that better. But a game situation is completely different. And the more they can play, the more they can be in a situation. Because remember, since we're missing that development, we're missing where a boy would, before he's 18, he would play under 13, under 14, under 15, all the way to under 19. He would play 6 years of high school rugby, 10 matches a year. He's in that situation more than enough times, where a lady is not in that situation enough. She gets to university, say not to us, and she's not even been in that situation once before. So being comfortable in that situation is important, being able to, like Corne said, trust yourself and have confidence in being able to at least attempt to try and make that pass.
But does that mean, Johann, that you have to change the way you coach to create more of those situations?
Definitely.
And
So for me, try the skill isolated, and then from that, if I start a session with one skill, so say now we're trying to pass and trying to beat someone on the outside, we must be able to take that and apply that in a small side again. So I'll try and isolate something to say now 2 passes, and then we must either put the person in space on the outside or we must switch in. So in a 7s context, if we practice that a couple of times, later in the session, we must be able to directly apply that as well. So they need to be able to practice it in the situation for them to, hopefully, the situation will mimic a fixture, and then the opportunity to apply it from the small side again.
And maybe one more thing from both of you on this, before you go on to the second part of that question, is if you are a young lady, what advice do you have for them? What can they do to start developing that decision making and those kind of skills on their own? You know, at home they don't have a brother that passes the ball around with them, whatever.
Well, I think first of all, from my side, if I can just talk out of trying to remember a little bit of my childhood, but get involved. I mean, sometimes you don't have siblings, and you don't have the parents that's necessarily that supportive or would like to, pass around or whatever. But I know it's difficult, but I mean, in the community that you are, I think it's talk to someone, like kind of find out what's going on around us. Is there any way that I can join, a team, or that I can join a community or a Saturday or Sunday, whatever, that there's ball skills involved, and there's people around me that can teach me the skill, or that can just get involved. Because I mean, it's difficult, and it's easy to accept the fact that you're not involved somewhere, and you just kind of settle down and understand. For instance, a girl that's 8 or 9 years old, where must she get involved? But we're getting lost along the way of everything around us, especially the communities and the neighborhood around us. Everything is going, it doesn't work out, kids doesn't get the opportunities, etc., because there's no support. But I mean, you as a child, 9 or 10 years old, make a decision to kind of get involved. Just ask around, ask questions. And I think that's when we're starting to realize that there's an interest in the sport, and there's an interest in, growing and developing a certain skill, or just, playing and get out there. Sounds difficult, but, just ask around, ask questions, and get involved.
Look for opportunities.
I think from my side, so definitely there are clubs now that are offering younger age playing group forming. So if they can reach out to that, that's obviously first prize. Also know some local primary schools in the area are letting up to a certain age. So for example, from under 7 to under 9, they're letting the girls play with the boys, which I think is fantastic, up to a certain age where it becomes too physical. Otherwise, it's a discussion of, growing up as an athlete, unilateral versus multilateral, just playing one sport through your whole childhood, and then all of a sudden you want to come to rugby. So if you're just doing sprinting, running in one line your whole primary school, high school career, and you get to rugby and you change direction, it's going to be extremely difficult. So for example, like Marithy, she played netball. So already her ankles are maybe more accustomed to changing side to side. She can get out of the blocks quicker. If you can spatial awareness, there's a lot of different topics and things you can pull from different sports, like soccer, being able to look up, see open space and play a through ball, or hockey, being able to track a ball, and there's lots of different things you can pull from different sports. So if rugby isn't available, be involved in one or two other things, because you'll learn something from it that you can then apply.
Makes sense. And did we get to the second question? I can't even remember.
Yeah, well, I want to say something before we get to your answer, before I forgot. Brendan Fenton told me this, the saying about the skill error reflects on the coach, and the effort error reflects on the player. So if, say, we took the example of trying to make a long pass to your weaker side. If a player in a training or in a match works his butt off to get into the right position, talks, get the ball, run hard, do everything at full pace, 100% effort, and he can't execute the pass, it doesn't reflect on him, it reflects on the coach. But if you're not willing to put in the time beforehand to practice the pass, as a player, ask for tips, or am I holding the ball correctly, make an effort from your side to improve the skill, that then reflects on the play. Or if you hide or not do it at full pace, or you don't listen to advice, that kind of world only reflects on the player. And I think if you can install that in your team, that as long as you give 100%, effort in terms of what the coach wants, put in the extras when nobody's looking, blah blah blah, then don't worry about the skill. As a coach, that's my job. I'll figure out how to teach you the skill, and I think that will take a lot of the fear away of failure or making a mistake.
Yeah, that fear of failure is a big one. I was thinking about, that's why I asked you the question, how do you work on that in training? How do you address that? Because I think if you train a certain way, obviously the brain gets used to that pattern, making decisions in that way, looking for only for those kind of opportunities. So to try and do it when you play the game will be next to impossible because you're not used to doing that. You're not used to thinking that way. And part of our what limits our thinking is fear, right? We're afraid to make mistakes. We won't try anything new, and we will definitely not try it in a game. Or we might try it and it will fail, and then we'll never try anything again, or anything like that. So I like that a lot. Giving players the opportunity to try things, and also creating those smaller games to get used to doing it at pace and making decisions. I want to get back to you as well, Johann. Did we get the question now? Still not. We are very professional.
We have to repeat that question again.
I
Which
think
one
it
was
was
it?
the technical aspect that needs most attention.
I think for me it would just be decision making. So I think and what's paired with that is execution. So I think, like we said, fear. I think a lot of the times, well, I know with my ladies and maybe other ladies as well, that a player is on, and sometimes they want to do it, but they have that fear that it's not going to work out that holds them back, and it's very difficult to break that. And I think that's obviously where the mental part comes in, and that you have to encourage them and say, you know what, just go for it. If it doesn't work, it's fine. I'm happy that you went for it. Or a lot of the times in our matches, a cross kick is on almost 80% of the time, but we'll never go for it because the ladies, they won't be like, you know what, I'm actually just going to go for it and let's see what happens. You know, if it's a complete mess up and it doesn't work, then that's fine. Then what? Maybe I'll give a bad kick or knock it on, there's a scrum. That's the worst that could happen. But often the thinking is, I'm going to make a mistake, you know, everyone's going to be angry at me. And whereas with guys, they're just like, well, I'm just going to go for it. It's a completely different confidence thing. And I think confidence is difficult to instill in people and it takes time.
Is it something that you had to work on, bringing the confidence that you maybe had on the netball field to the rugby field?
Yeah, so I'd say confidence it's huge, and I think it starts with how the interaction between players and the coach. Is it smooth, or is it a bit rough? Is it comfortable? Do you have confidence to talk to the coach? And I think once you create a confident environment while you train, then you will automatically transfer that in a game, for instance, because you created a habit, and just as much as a good habit can stick, a bad habit can stick. So, and I mean by bad habits, it can be you're not comfortable to talk to the coach, you're scared, you don't know what your players or your teammates are going to think when you do this, or when you ask this, you feel kind of stupid when you ask a question. And if that can change, even if it's by tapping into players and having meetings and more focus, or put a lot of emphasis on the life skill component of things, and what do you do when you're in a pressure situation, or what do you do when you want to ask a question but you're scared. So kind of get your mentality in a confident position or in a confident state before you can actually physically do something with confidence. So
Can you say a bit more about that? How did you do that? What helped you, or who helped you to create that mentality?
So, besides from the fact that I'm not scared to ask questions, I think, but obviously people are not the same. I think what helped me is I made a couple of great friends in the system that's been part of the system for a very long time, and obviously they guide you through certain things, and you as an individual also obviously have to make decisions whether you're going to adjust. And sometimes you can't really keep on asking questions. You should either adjust or you should like kind of change the way that you do things, instead of just blaming the whole system or I'm scared to talk to the coach. So you have to actually take a step into that direction, and interaction goes both ways. I mean, from the coach to the player, from the player to the coach. But for me, I guess it was a little bit easier because I do like to ask questions, and I think it's difficult for other people simply because we don't come from the same background, we don't come from the same environment. And I mean, sometimes, like, I come from an environment or I grew up where you had an opinion and you can talk.
Even if your mom doesn't want you to play rugby, you
Yes.
still play rugby.
And sometimes even if she doesn't want me to say something, I do say something. So I think obviously we need to tap into the individual and the person first, and then obviously if that is in place, I think it's just way more easier to interact and to go to the next level in terms of training and the physicality of it.
What can a coach do to try and create that for different kinds of players? So the player that doesn't want to ask a question, how do you address that?
So I mean, for me, we have a lot of new ladies joining, and then obviously they'll, the ladies that have been with me for a while, they're a bit more comfortable. I encourage them, I ask questions, and I think what you need to do as a coach is you have to pull feedback from the player, because you don't know what's going on in the player's head unless you pull feedback.
I like the way you put that, pull it.
You must pull it, and you must encourage them to give you something to work with. Because if you can't get something from them, then you have no idea what's going on in their head, how they're feeling, are they comfortable, what mood state they are in. So for me, it's not going to happen immediately. But if I can, after the session or before the session, talk to them for 5 minutes, see how their day was, ask them questions, have them ask me questions. That interaction that can happen more off the field will slowly start happening on the field. As soon as we get out of a drill, guys, how did that feel? I can target them and say, give me some feedback. How was for you? How was that pass? How come when you tackled there you didn't hold it all the way down? And the more you can engage first one-on-one and then engage in bigger groups, it'll slowly build that player's confidence, and hopefully they'll start openly sharing with the group more and saying, Coach, you've told us this, but last week, I had that. One week I said one thing, the other week the other, and then one day they said, Coach, but last week you said that. And I said, actually, thank you for saying, because otherwise I would have just coached you something wrong. So you have to, as Marithy said, you have to create a space where they're comfortable. And if someone's not comfortable, and if they get shut down when they want to speak, then they'll never speak again. And I think as coaches, it's our job to really pull that feedback from them. How they're doing academically, well, for the university ladies, how their home lives, how they're feeling today, how they're feeling after gym, how does that session make them feel, how does hitting a tackle make them feel, I think as much as we can interact with them, the more we can do that, the better.
What are the different ways that you gather that kind of information? So you've mentioned talking to them, asking questions. What else do you guys do?
I do RPEs. I do very basic RPEs. So
can you just explain what?
So RPE is the rate of perceived exertion. So I usually take that after a session, and it's a scale for me from 0 to 10 of how hard the entire session was to them. So paired with that, they'll usually give the session a rating, so I can see how difficult it was for them. And then the next question, usually on the questionnaire, is their life or academic stress. So I'll get a rating of how difficult the session was. Then in that same rating, I can see, well, this person, they found the session pretty easy, but their life or academic stress is a 5 out of a 5. And then I can approach them and say, how are you feeling today? What's going on? Are academics too difficult? Maybe I can be a little bit less harsh in the next training session. Maybe if I see the stress is only a 1, I can really push them the next session. Or if they had a very difficult session and a lot of stress, then I know maybe I can actually give that person a day off. Maybe they need just some time off to recoup, to go and study an extra day for upcoming test week. Or I can kind of connect with them on that level without them always having to directly come to me, having 30 people come to me and saying, I'm stressed,
Yes, exactly.
I'm stressed. So
and if you see that across the board with, the team needs a break.
Exactly.
Got you.
And I think if they have comfortable channels that they can talk to you, and if they can speak and they can come to me, or they can, even if they are scared to come to me, they can ask someone else to come to me, and I can approach them kind of indirectly in a way. So as long as you're promoting a way for someone to come to you and there's different channels available to them, then I think that's a fantastic way to approach it.
Yeah, so at Sasri we do wellness. So it's a basic form they do every morning. And, it's a range of questions from how many hours did you sleep, how was the quality of the sleep, what's your mood, blah 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 blah. So already from that you get some feedback. Some guy would just for no reason give his mood a 1 out of 5 or whatever. So it's a kind of a safe environment for him to just say my mood is 1 out of 5.
And
Doesn't have to give a reason or anything.
also create self-awareness, right? To
100%.
think about things like
100%.
that.
So instantly as a coach or as an SNC, you kind of have feedback. Okay, he had a bad night's sleep for whatever reason, he was up at night. So that's one part of it. And for me, from a coach's point of view, you need to connect. So you have to start to learn your play. Like he said, sort of a bit of background. Maybe you come from also a small town. I come from Redasdorp, we're only 300 in the school, blah, blah, blah. Something that
Connects you.
yeah, so away from rugby. And then from there, you need to kind of know your player. If he's more quiet or reserved, then on your way to training, walking, you might be in his ear, like, how are you doing? You're finding the training easier, blah, blah, blah. And the more confident ones, the more he needs to be in the team. You need to tell him, well, you need to pull your weight, or you need to challenge him. He needs a bit more. So, but it takes time. You can't just jump in straight away. But I think those two, other measuring unit, we do the RPEs, but the way to manage the load is to multiply the RPE by the minutes on the field. So say the RPE is 8 out of 10, we train for 30 minutes, then 30 times 8, 210, that's the load for that training. And in the block for Sasri, say 5,000 in a 3 weeks block is a lot. But now if some player, everybody gives it a 6 out of 10, but this guy gives it a 9 out of 10. Like he said, then there's something happening. He's either fatigued or he's on the verge of being ill or cold, or something's happening that's not quite right. So that's also a way of them telling you, well, I'm struggling.
Something's wrong. I see you making a lot of notes about that. Is that
No, I actually just listen, and I think it's obviously, making notes because I can probably use it somewhere.
great?
Maybe tell us a bit, where you're at the moment.
Yes.
What's your 5-year plan? What do you want to? Where are you going? What do you want to do?
So I won't say I have a 5-year plan, because if I've said that in the past and I'm not there. I'm currently working for Gaelic Sport in Stellenbosch. So there's 3 main focus of the actual company, and one of it is the Sevens Academy that we've established at the beginning of this year. And it's primary school for now. In future, obviously, we'll see how the program goes and if we can extend that to high school. And yes, basically 4 times a week I coach there in the afternoon. And yes, it's currently called it's Franschhoek Sevens Academy because it's in Franschhoek, but it falls under Gaelic Sport. And it's only boys for now, but the exciting part of all of this is that we're kicking off the women's program in 2020.
Ah, awesome.
So yes, we've got to adopt a player initiative that we basically look for sponsors around us to be able to sponsor those children to become part of the academy. And then obviously it's our surrounding communities, under-resourced communities that we get the players from. Obviously to give them opportunities, because I think sometimes there's a lot of talent hiding there and you don't know of it. But yeah, that's basically what I do. So very excited about the women's component that's kicking off next year. And
So you definitely have a 2-year plan. That's for next year.
let's say yes. Let's say a year and a half from now. Yeah, so that's basically it, coaching, and then obviously admin that comes with it. But that's about it.
Okay. Johann, would you like to maybe just tell us how you got into coaching the ladies team?
So last year I coached under 14 at Polrose, and then that finished up after a good weekend in Grey. And then
thank you. Good job done.
After that season was done, I was it was my first season kind of coaching a full season of rugby, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought, wow, I'd love to coach more in the year. And then I actually got an email from one of the players of the team saying that they had a coach there who they weren't enjoying very much, and he was on his way out. And yeah, I volunteered and I coached there for free for a couple of months, so about 3 months. And I had a lot of different expectations going into it. Obviously, all the stereotypes of women's rugby. I was kind of thinking like, oh, is it, they're not going to know how to do anything, or I'd never really seen women's rugby being played before. No prior knowledge kind of how the game's different to the men's game. And I thought, well, okay, I get to coach rugby. It'll be fun, and I really enjoyed it. I love working with the ladies. They're a ton of fun, and never look back. And this year I'm fortunate enough to have a position at Marty's, which is fantastic, and I'm really, really thankful for that. And
how did working with them in change that perception that you had?
I flipped it around, because they're a really energetic bunch. And I'm lucky that they speak a lot and they speak their mind, and we always, when it's time to work, we get the work done, and when it's time for fun, we have a lot of fun. And I think it helps that I'm also maybe kind of close in age with them, that I can kind of have fun with them, and we can, so I have a really good connection with them, which is important to me.
You're going to Japan?
Yeah, we actually, we won last year, October, DHL started a DHL delivered competition, and I saw it on Facebook, the advert for the competition. I thought, he probably is, what's the chances of winning? And then I emailed them and said, cool, and all you have to do is you have to host any type of rugby match. It can be beach rugby, tag rugby, you can host anything. And they kept emailing me and pestering me to host it, and I thought, this is, it's a waste of my time. These people must just stop emailing me. And then in about December, I emailed and said, okay, fine, let's do it sometime in February. And they came and they brought a bunch of DHL goodies, and we played a rugby match. They filmed it. And 461 teams around the world entered, and they do interviews and take pictures of your match, and then they send it to the headquarters in Germany. And there they chose us, and they chose a local Japanese team. So so in October, 461 teams all over the world, and so that's going to be
461 coaches being pasted on email and said, fine.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So we're very lucky, and the ladies.
How many of you are going?
15 of us are going. So we're watching England versus France, and we're playing a sevens match against another local Japanese women's team. So
what?
Yeah, it's a trip of a lifetime. So we're really excited about it.
Time to come out of retirement.
Make a comeback. The 5-year plan is back.
It's back on track. Going to the World Cup.
Love it. And we also like to hear some funny stories that you guys have to tell us about your experiences in rugby. Marithy? Oh, wow. She's turning red. You can't see it if you're listening to this, but that means there's some good stuff here.
The problem is if I don't tell my funniest story, I'm never going to hear the end of it. Okay, so 2016 Hong Kong. Just one of my greatest achievements by winning the tournament with the team. I think that's probably my greatest memory as well. But anyway, so we made it through to the final. We played all the pool matches, made it through to the final, and then had the opportunity to play on the big stage. So before the game, we had normal team chat, whatever, and coach came in and he said, listen here guys, if you are able to win this tournament, then obviously you would be crowned the first South African team winning the Hong Kong Sevens. Okay, but that's not the funny part. So then, in the change room, I realized that I haven't packed in my mouth guard. and I am very scared to play without one. So then, you know, a very close friend still, but Nomsa, said, but don't worry, I have an extra mouth guard. So I said, well, let's see, you know, let's see. So I just asked her, listen here, just, you know, give it to me, let me try it, because I'm not going to play without one, I'm scared. And I ended up trying it, and it was kind of, you know, it fit me. And I went onto the field with Nomsa's mouth guard in my mouth. And towards the end of the game, the thing was in my sock anyway. So, but I didn't really realize because I was so pumped playing this final, and I ended up playing with the thing in my sock. I think I had it in my mouth once or twice, but so I think that was more or less the funniest story that I have. I think it's more disgusting than funny.
It's a good story. I use my mouth guard, it's fine.
So at least I had quite a great comment from our physio. She said, well, at least you safe, you play safe.
Yes,
so
your cough was protected.
I had this roommate at Dagbek Stellenbosch where it was our second year, and it's fair to say we weren't, was it tidy? Like the room was just crazy. So by Friday, 4 o'clock, we play 5. Now we're looking for mouth guards, like everywhere, like under clothes. And the first one that can find a mouth guard
It's yours.
was that old school one you just put in the coffee cup and you kind of fix. And then after a while we'll lose and then we'll buy new ones. So first one that can find a mouth guard.
You got it.
See, I'm not alone.
Johann?
Yeah. Nothing big that stands out for me, but no big story in mind. We haven't really done a lot of tours or anything like that. But
so after Japan, you'll have some.
But we're actually going for the first time to USAS next week, which will be the first time the team goes, which is really nice.
Tell us about USAS.
So it's our first year going.
But just for the people listening, what is it?
So it's a University Sports of South Africa. So it's that association, and then so it's a sevens tournament taking place in Joburg, and pretty much all the universities that offer women's rugby are playing. So it's a really nice platform for all the universities to meet and to play against each other. And I'm not too sure how often the women's sevens takes place, but I know this year I think is the first year there'll be varsity sports sevens, which is on the men. I think it's for the 4th and 5th of October, possibly the ladies also that weekend, and that's usually televised. I don't know if the women will be televised. It would be fantastic if it is. But so we in the pool, our first game is against Tuks, which is fantastic. That'll be a good, tough game. And we also have CPUT and Wits in our pool. So I think just going is already a big achievement for our squad. And Marithy Sport being able to help us with funding, which is difficult, it's expensive to go. I mean, if you have 2,000 Rand per flight for 14 people, you already have a lot of money. So the ladies are just really excited at the opportunity to go, which is big for them. But I mean, in terms of funny moments, we just always laughing and joking and having a good time. And for, when you're with a group of people and you're always just having fun and being able to have a good time and laugh together, it's 100 funny moments in a day almost, kind of. Which is always just a nice culture to have around a group.
Awesome. I wanted to get into your question about the setup. What because you're talking about televising the game, and you talked about playing on the big stage. So there's still a long way to go before it's on the same level and opportunity-wise as well. Which I mean, on one, you kind of understand that. But what would you change if you could, Marithy, in terms of the setup? If you had how did you put it?
Yeah, so if you were, appointed at Sorry tomorrow as head of the women's swear, the whole thing there, what would you do? Where would you start? What would be your priorities?
So I don't think I'd really, obviously I have a priority and I have a responsibility to attend to the team's needs and whatever. But I would try and rather, obviously doing my job and fulfill that position. But I think it's so important that someone should start putting a system in place, whether it's writing a module for younger girls, whether it's literally appointing people into the right direction to start with women's rugby at a younger age, because currently we're sitting with a lot of talent at younger age, but it never gets developed. And obviously players of from under 17 can't be selected to play in the national team. But so there's no in between. There's no development. So for me, I think if I do have that power to change it, I would literally fulfill my job, obviously do what I need to do, but try and write something, try and create a system where the SA7's women's can feed from. And that's not going to take a year or 2 or 3. It's actually going to take 5 or 6 years in order for it to flow. So if someone's not going to start now, then I don't really know when we're ever going to grow at the pace that a typical New Zealand, Australia, Canada, USA is growing, because they do have systems in place, and I think we should really start comparing ourselves with them, and where we and what do we do and what don't we do and what do they do and what's working for them and what's not. But I don't think people are really they don't really want to put in the hard yards, and they don't want to really work for 5 or 6 years so that the next generation can reap the rewards.
Well, that's a good place to stop, I think, and ponder on that. Thank you guys both for joining us. Thank you so much for sharing. And we'll put some links on below where people can maybe catch up with you, Johann, and you, Marithy, and see what you guys are up to, and also Calix, and how they can reach out and support you guys. Thanks, Gunay. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.